Hey guys, today I want to share with you some minimalist money saving tips for how you can save in the midst of this global pandemic that we're currently in. And for many of us, there's a lot of financial uncertainty right now about what our jobs are going to look like or what our income is going to look like a couple of weeks or even months down the road. So regardless of what your financial situation looks like right now, I hope that these tips can help you to be able to save money during this crisis that we're currently in. Before we get started, if we don't know each other yet, hi, my name is Ashlynne, and I make videos every week on this channel about minimalism and intentional living. So if that sounds interesting to you, be sure to hit that subscribe button below. But let's get started with my first tip, which is to make a plan. Too often we don't know where our money is going each month and we operate without a financial plan in place. But now more than ever, it's so important that we analyze what we're spending money on and make a plan on how we're going to save. And the biggest way you can do this is to create a budget. Look at what your fixed expenses are each month, like rent, utilities, insurance, things like that, and what your variable expenses are, the things that change from month to month. This looks like gas, groceries, things of that nature. Look at what you're actually spending each month versus what you want to be spending, and then put a plan of how you want to be spending your money onto paper, and then just stick to it. The first time you do this, it might seem a little bit tedious, but stick with it and you'll be amazed by how much money you can save simply by really analyzing where you're spending money and putting a plan in place so that you can spend more intentionally. So if you take away nothing else from this video, during times of uncertainty, it is so important that we are putting a plan into place for how we're going to be spending and saving. The second tip is also important though, and it is so relevant for the times that we're in, and that's not to panic. In the past few weeks, I have seen so many people spending money on things that they don't need simply because they're following this crowd mentality of, okay, I never buy canned food, but I feel like I should just because we're in the midst of these times. Yes, during times like this, it's good to stock up on groceries that you're actually going to use, but if you're going out and buying things just because you're panicking and following that kind of crowd herd mentality, that's not going to be productive from your ability to save money. Plus, you're bringing things into your life you aren't actually going to use. So there isn't really a point to it anyways. So with this one, it's just important to maintain a level head. Continue buying, and maybe you want to stock up on things you're actually going to use, but don't buy more than you need, and especially don't buy things you're never going to use. When we buy things just because we think we should, what we're really doing is throwing money out the window, because those items are just going to sit around our lives and our homes collecting dust without ever being touched. Okay, let's talk about number 3, and that is to slash your expenses. During times of greater certainty where we have a job that we know is secure and we have money coming in, it can be easy for us to spend money on superfluous things that contribute to our lives but aren't necessarily essential. But during times like these, if you have a job that you think might be in jeopardy, or if you're simply wanting to be really intentional about saving money, it's a good idea to slash some of these expenses that are taking away from your ability to save. So obviously you know what you spend money on a lot better than I do, but some ideas of things that you might want to consider cutting from your budget are extra expenses like canceling any extra subscription services that you might have, or even cutting these altogether depending on the financial situation you're in. Not ordering takeout is another big one. And then think about too what you might be able to do to save energy around the home. Can you turn off your air conditioning or heating? Can you make sure that you're using the shower for less time each day? Maybe you can use the lights in your house as little as possible. And each of these ideas might not seem like much when taken in isolation, but if you really put them together, do a deep dive of your finances, figuring out what is superfluous and where you might be able to save money. If you really crack down on those extra expenses and trying to save money wherever you can, my guess is that you'll probably be able to find hundreds and maybe even $1,000 that you can begin putting towards savings each month. And speaking of cutting expenses, this is a huge one, and that is to stop online shopping. Online shopping, particularly the browsing variety where we're just looking online, just sets us up for impulse decisions and for us to buy things that we don't need, which is going to be incredibly counterproductive to our ability to save. I know this can be a hard one, especially if impulse shopping is something that you've struggled with in the past, but once again, with the times that we're currently in, it's more important than ever that we're focusing on trying to save as much as possible without spending money on things that we don't need. So of course, if there are necessities, you can buy them online, but like I said, use a plan, be smart about it, and just don't waste time browsing or looking around when you're shopping online. get what you need and get off so that you can save money. And then my final tip for you today is to try to set up 3 to 6 months worth of expenses as an emergency fund. And granted, we are already in the midst of this crisis, so it might be too late to get that full emergency fund up and running. But it is never too late to start saving and creating a little bit of a financial buffer so that you're hopefully not going to live paycheck to paycheck and have a bit of a reserve that you can draw on if the situation arises and if you need it. By setting aside a portion of your savings to use as an emergency fund, what you're essentially doing is creating a bit of margin. It makes it so that any situation, any crisis that comes up, while serious, is not as drastic as it might be otherwise because you have a little bit of wiggle room. So if you have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved up, that's fantastic. You're doing great. But even if that's not something that's going to be viable for you currently, see what you can do to create even just $1,000 emergency fund that you can lean on should the situation arise. I know talking about the worst case scenario isn't fun or easy, but it's important that we're at least creating a plan just in case something happens. Well, there you guys have it. Those are my minimalist tips for saving money during the midst of this global crisis that we're in. But before I sign off, I did just want to share one quick caveat to all of this with you guys. Just depending on the financial situation that you're in, you may have more or less stability. If you do have less stability, you're really going to want to focus and to lean into some of these tips that I shared with you today. But if you're in a situation with a little bit more stability or savings to kind of act as that buffer, that margin that we were talking about, there is a little bit more leniency with this one. I know we've all been hearing about the impact that this pandemic is having on small brands and businesses, and there are some incredible ones out there. So if you do have more of that margin and a bit more of that job security, it can be a great idea to, with a plan, looking at your budget, support some of those small businesses or even friends or family members who are struggling during this time. I know that's something Christopher and I are personally trying to do right now as well. So just wanted to put that disclaimer out there. Depending on the situation that you're in, you might want to approach these tips with more stringency or leniency. But in the end, this all goes back to knowing your financial situation, having a plan, and sticking to it. So wherever you are right now, I hope that this video was helpful and encouraging for you. And if you have any tips I didn't mention on how to save money during this crisis, or you just want to let me know how you're doing right now, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you guys and chat with you there. Also remember that if you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, you can hit that subscribe button below for more minimalism and intentional living content coming at you twice a week. All right, well, that's everything I have for you guys today. If you guys want to follow me on Instagram for more daily updates on how I'm doing and just some little inspiration and encouragement, you can follow me there at ashlynne.eaton. But that's everything for now. I love you guys all so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.